Welcome into the match day 3 episode of Betting the Pitch presents the Europa League. We're going to go through on this episode, just me, the real underscore G Warner on Instagram, Patreon, Twitter, and on YouTube. Going to be going through the entire match day of Thursday, October 24th, match day 3 for the Europa League, and a split for an ultimate best bet coming end of show, which you can get a 1 minute version of this entire podcast with selections from a favorite bet from the early slate that starts at 12:45 Eastern time, 11:45 God's time or Texas time, as I'm recording from Dallas, Texas today. Late window starts at 3 p.m. Eastern and 2 p.m. Central. And no other time zones in America matter. Just kidding. But we'll pick one from those two sections and come out with the best bet. We're 6-2 our last 8. Have not caught up on Champions League just yet this week, but 6-2 last 8 that I have watched. So off to a great start, trying to keep that going. If you could, please hit subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, to Betting the Pitch on YouTube at the real underscore G Warner. And if you want to like some videos or at least some 5-star reviews, it's huge for the search rankings, and I will read comments if I see them. So let's get into it. So I'll start with the early window in Europa League. We'll start with PAOK hosting Victoria Plzen. Looks like, as I unfortunately have the newer version of BetOnline pulled up, all lines are quoted courtesy of BetOnline, SportsBetting.ag, SportsBetting.ag. They're sister sites. They use the same lines. And if you have an account at one but not another, go sign up, make a first-time deposit, follow the links in the podcast descriptions on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and on YouTube, and you will get free money from the casino. I think matches up to $1,000. So take advantage of that. We'll start with PAOK. They're half a goal favorite at home right now to Victoria Plzen. A little bit more juice on PAOK right now. Over under is 2 3/4, and that's used pretty heavily to under right now. I think that speaks to what you'd, I guess, expect from a Victoria Plzen side. Czech champions, or not champions, clearly, sorry, because that would be Sparta Prague or Slavia Prague. I believe it's Sparta Prague, as they are in Champions League and had to deal with Manchester City today on Wednesday, the 23rd of October. But Victoria Plzen has looked really good in Conference League last year. Very different, of course, in Europa League, and very different than Champions League as well. But defensive record was great. Had an incredible stolen draw on the road at Eintracht Frankfurt in their opener in Europa League, and then saw a goalless draw in their second matchup with Ludogorets. So there haven't been a lot of goals in at least their home match. A lot at Eintracht Frankfurt, but they were behind big, and Eintracht Frankfurt from the German Bundesliga have a huge squad value and a ton of talent that Victoria Plzen don't really have. Now, coming this year, I expected PAOK to be a little bit better. I've been disappointed with how they performed so far. For that reason, I'll put Victoria Plzen on my list, both as an underdog of a half of a goal and also to under 2 3/4. We'll move next to Roma hosting Dynamo Kyiv. Currently, Roma a 1 goal favorite with all the juice. Over under is 2 3/4, just a little bit more to over than to under. Dynamo Kyiv, they're I mean, it's an amazing story that any Ukrainian sides, I guess they do kind of get birthed into these competitions from finishing wherever they do in the league. But in a war-torn country, to see them still competing on this level is pretty amazing. Problem is they have to go to Roma, who have not been good in this competition, have been really struggling, and I'm sure are not happy about it, looking to change that as soon as possible. They already sacked their manager, brought in a new one. They did play Inter Milan this weekend, though, so that certainly makes things a little bit more difficult coming into hosting a lowly Ukrainian side that hasn't performed very well in this competition. But with that said, I think Roma are much better. I expect they will finally get the ship turned in the right direction. Ivan Juric, a really possession-heavy manager, should make it very hard for Dynamo Kyiv to even see the ball. And away from home, I think they will struggle. So I think I'll actually leave this one off my list entirely. Not really interested in playing fading Roma. Though I guess the full goal venture does interest me a little bit now that I come around to that idea. Moving next to Michelin hosting Union Saint-Gilloise. Union Saint-Gilloise, pretty much any team with Union in it, I like to back after all the success I've had over my soccer betting career, which you could follow along at the real underscore G Warner on Instagram, Patreon, Twitter, and on YouTube. But Union Berlin have been great to me. Union Saint-Gilloise, one of those smaller nations from Belgian league in the Jupiler, I want to say. I'm probably pronouncing that wrong, but Incredible spot club that feeds great talent to the rest of the world. We see Boniface leading the line as a striker for Bayer Leverkusen, amongst others. Michelin on the other side, they're quarter goal favorite as we get straight into the number. A little bit more juice on Union Saint-Gilloise. Over under here is 2.5. Just a little bit more to over. I'm kind of surprised that the number's that small because Michelin have not looked great defensively, and Union Saint-Gilloise are built on scoring goals. They did bring in a new manager after theirs departed for the departure of a St. Pauli manager that won the Schweizer League, the second Bundesliga in Germany, and then took the Brighton job. So they've been trying to figure out kind of things, who they are, what they are, but I still think they're a team that finds really good talent from Brussels, I believe, in the capital of Belgium. And I like the side getting a quarter of a goal. I'm not sure if that's enough for me to want to play just yet. Certainly be looking to see where this one moves, as I don't really see Michelin as being that strong. I think they're a Danish squad, and I just don't feel like I've seen enough for them so far in this competition or really in any of these bigger continental events. Moving next to Maccabi Tel Aviv hosting Real Sociedad. Currently, Maccabi Tel Aviv, a three-quarter goal underdog in their home away from home, because I don't think any matches are going down in Tel Aviv nor anywhere in Israel at this point, based on more war, yay to geopolitics. Over under this one is 2.5, juiced pretty heavily to under right now, and it should be based on Real Sociedad not scoring any goals this entire season. They did find the first goal on the road at Girona this past weekend in La Liga, and that was enough for them to hold on and win. The big question here is, can Maccabi Tel Aviv score and can they compete? I think they can compete because Real Sociedad might dominate possession, but they really struggle to score. For that reason, I think I'm mostly interested in the under 2.5 in this one, especially as I feel like that might fall to 2.25 before too long. But with that said, I think Maccabi Tel Aviv, that's the biggest question in this one. Can they score a goal? Probably not. But can they stay close enough on a neutral site? Probably somewhere in Poland or in Hungary and in Budapest or something like that. I'm just not really a huge believer in any real Israeli sides at this level of the competition in the Europa League. Move next to Ferencváros. Speaking of Budapest, they will be hosting Nice in Budapest. Currently, Ferencváros a pick'em right now at home, but all the juice on Nice away from home. Over under is 2.5. Again, juice really heavily to under, and that's for good reason. So Nice have not really scored a lot of goals in any sort of competition, especially not in Ligue 1, but did find their way into the Europa League, really behind a great defense that dominated the first half of last season in Ligue 1. They were actually top of the table for a while. Ferencváros, to me, every time I watch them, they're playing a very defensive brand of football that makes the pick'em a little bit less interesting to me. I'd like to see them move to a quarter goal underdog. I don't think I've seen that since I've been watching these numbers, but that would certainly be a little bit more interesting for me. I think my biggest interest in this one is under 2.5. Two teams that I think are limited offensively. We'll see about the status of Nice captain Donchi, or Dante, looks like it's spelled, Brazilian, who's been at Nice forever, amongst other clubs, of course, and big names throughout Europe, but did not play this past weekend. I don't think he was suspended. I thought it was an injury, but I could be wrong on that one. But regardless, Nice has a pretty defensive side and have a manager that's been really good at restricting opposing offenses. Got promoted, I guess, or took a new job, left Racing Club de Lens, I think, got them promoted. Frank Heis did, and then moved to Nice for, I'm sure, a much bigger payday, bigger club, more money, et cetera, et cetera. But it really hasn't come off for him just yet. They played a tough matchup this weekend, and I'm not really necessarily a believer in Nice's offense, especially not away from home in a competition like this one. Eintracht Frankfurt then host Rigas Futbola Scola, and they are a huge favorite, minus 2.25 goals at home. Total is 3.5. Juiced a little bit more to over. And I don't think there's enough here for me to think that Rigas Futbol Escola will actually play competitively here. They could, big price, of course, and Eintracht Frankfurt have been struggling defensively, I think, to say the least. But I think that's a lot based on being a young squad and trying to play offensive, attacking, and winning football, which is a little bit weird to see from Dino Topmüller, their manager, who I think came from Bayern München assistant coach to take the helm in Frankfurt, the financial capital of Germany. But I just don't know that Eintracht Frankfurt should be able to name their price here and name how many goals they're going to score. The biggest question is how many will they concede? So maybe an over 3.5 is a little bit worth a look in this one. Last match before of this early window, I'll pick one of these to be part of the ultimate best bet coming end of show. We'll go to Karabag hosting Ajax. Currently, Karabag only a quarter goal underdog at home, which feels a little bit low to me, I gotta say. Total here is 3, juiced pretty heavily to under right now. And that 3 is important. Ajax have been really, really good in previous seasons, had made it to a Champions League final, and then the last few years have been awful. And we've seen a lot of club turnover. They sold basically all their players to Manchester United when Eric Ten Hag took the job, and that's gone horribly wrong in England, as well as left a pile of tears, ashes, and all these sort of things in Amsterdam as well. Ajax, I think, are going to improve. They hired a really defensive manager, which is very different than their all-out attacking recent past. So I think there's still some value in potentially backing that there's going to be a low-scoring match here. So I like under 3, especially that push on 3, I think is vital. And as for the Qarabağ side, I don't have a great insight into them as a quarter goal underdog, but it feels like the market is telling us a little bit with a fairly high total and the home underdog looking like a really small one at that. So you really want to, I guess you got to really want to back Qarabağ if you're going to take that only a quarter of a goal at home, because Ajax are still a big name, and I imagine there probably will be some Ajax money that will come in case you do like Qarabağ. But for the first bet, or I guess the earlier section of the ultimate best bet nominee, I'm going to go with that under 2.5 Maccabi Tel Aviv hosting, though, on a neutral site, Real Sociedad. Sociedad really struggle to score goals at home. So anywhere that's not at home will certainly damage the in name only the nominal home team, Maccabi Tel Aviv, but also make it very hard on Real Sociedad to, I think, do all the heavy lifting themselves to score 3 goals. We haven't seen that what feels like years. I'll move now to the later section of this episode. Also have a link in the new description if you want to play some DFS, probably most popular for American sport. The NBA, of course, starting, and they have actually a free giveaway, a free $25 bet. And pretty much if you follow the link that I have in the post, or wherever you get your podcasts, you can get $100 for a match for your first time sign up if you follow my code. Plus, you can there's a free best bet out there for like 8 days or something like that to give you a free $25 little incremental and no risk. So you could, of course, try to win that $25 or go nuts and make something really long shot and ultimately get that money put back into your account. So look for the sleeper if you want to play that, the sleeper code if you're looking to play. Please feel free to come in. It's some certain way that I'm kind of expanding my gambling horizons a little bit, and you'll probably see on Instagram a little bit more activity for promoting some DFS stuff as well, as that's a new part, I guess, brand to my ever expanding at the real_G Warner portfolio. Before we get to that later section, we do have an NFL podcast out there with that A_Schnicker recorded last night, Tuesday, October 22nd, with our best bets for this weekend. We're 8-6 to start this season, so profitable, but certainly trying to push that. We're 63% our last 32 best bets heading into, or I guess coming off a great playoff run last season. So trying to keep that going as well. And we'll be doing a baseball podcast with Munaf Manji on pregame.com. Baseball stuff tomorrow coming out on Thursday, plus the college football podcast out there with that Big East Ben. And that's probably everything I need to plug. So let's get to the later window on this Wednesday. I guess it's Wednesday, October 23rd, recording this, and a little bit earlier than normal. It's probably why I'm not yawning. But Thursday, Europa League is what we're talking about on this episode. So let's move now to the later window. We'll start with a match I have a fair amount of interest in. Another Czech club here with Athletic Club Bilbao, a Spanish one, hosting Slavia Praha. Currently, Athletic Club, a 3/4 goal favorite, juice to split both ways, so no real tell on where this one's going to move. Total is 2.5, juice a little bit more to over right now. Slavia Praha, I feel like have been really good at home in this competition or any competition, and I was in and actually saw them play Roma in Rome last year, where this, as you can see over my shoulder, if I'm moving the right way, where that little scarf came from. Not really a scarf guy, but I guess I had it, and what the heck, it's not a terrible background. But ultimately, Slavia Prague, I think, are going to go. They're going to travel well. They're all going to wear black shirts. Don't know what that says about alt-right of Czechia politics or something like that. Hopefully nothing. But that's, I guess, for them to decide. And I think Athletic Club, they've been playing well in finally getting back into Europa League or any sort of European competition. It's been a long time, and kind of balancing those competitions will be the big question mark. They smashed Espanyol this weekend at home and get to stay at home for a Thursday late night Europa League match. So they should be in pretty good spirits and pretty good shape. I'm questioning how healthy Nico Williams is. Of course, played this weekend, but had been coming back from injury. So I do wonder what his availability is. Of course, that will definitely impact, especially after how well he played in the Euros this summer. But assuming he starts, this number feels about where it should be. I'll be looking to see if Slavia Prague move to a one goal underdog, but I think there's still some value in under three is the full number here. I was trying to think about while I was typing what the abbreviation for Slavia Prague is and the little three letters that Europa League uses. But regardless, Slavia Prague under three is my biggest interest in that matchup. I think it's going to be hard to see goals, or excuse me, under 2.5 is that number. Of course, I'd like under three. I don't think we'll move there, but still interested in 2.5. But I think it's based on defensive side coming in to San Mames, which did see some goals this weekend, but I'll bet against that happening twice in a row. Moving next to Fenerbahce hosting Manchester United, one of the bigger matchups of this competition, probably, and definitely on this Thursday, October 24th. Fenerbahce managed by Jose Mourinho, the special one coming off previously being at Manchester United not too long ago. Fenerbahce, a quarter goal underdog at home with all the juice right now. Over under on this one is 2.75. Juice a little bit more to over. And I got to say, I'm pretty interested in continuing a Manchester United fade. So I like the home underdog getting a quarter of a goal. A result at home, draw or a win, paying you. Certainly not a bad way to go through life. Also lean to under 2.75. So I'll be certainly looking for three to pop. Manchester United with a good comeback win this weekend. You could argue their first goal, or the only goal they conceded at the end of the first half, was due to their a cut in Matthias de Ligt's head that ended up having them with one less person to defend a corner kick late. But they fell behind and felt pretty fortunate to win, though definitely had some big missed chances and kind of looked like they were playing some special football, some great passing, though I'll bet against that continuing. I think there's still a ton of pressure on Erik ten Hag. I think there's a lot of pressure on just a less talented Manchester United side. Certainly, they've been beaten down by criticism, media, anything you can ask for because they're the biggest club in the world and should be performing better. But at this point, I think I'm still looking to bet against them. I think their defense is a lot better than we've seen in this competition, and will probably be very difficult for Fenerbahce, a Turkish giant, to break down. But Fenerbahce at home will have a big crowd advantage. I think that will lower the output of the Manchester United offense. I don't know if they get much more than a goal here, and certainly any sort of shutout would make a Fenerbahce side bet a winner guaranteed, and make it hard to see over there as well. So I'll go under 2.75, but I'm also interested in the home underdog plus 1/4 of a goal. Move next to Malmo. As easy for me to say, to Malmo hosting Olympiacos, and Olympiacos from Greece, they pick them, but with all the juice right now, I'm a little bit surprised to see them getting so much respect, though they've definitely performed in European competitions under Jose Luis Mendilibar. Over under is 2.5. Juice really heavily to over right now. Maybe we see this climb to 2.75. Maybe we see Malmo move to a quarter goal underdog. That's the side I want. I think Olympiacos, I just feel like they've outplayed their talent. They certainly have spent a lot of money on getting names you've probably heard of in a lot of these big European leagues, but usually on the kind of the downside of their careers and later in the footballer's life. But Malmo, not of course, an incredibly talented team. I believe they're from Sweden. Let's see to make sure if I got that right. It's like a quiz every time. Yes, they are from Malmö Scania in Sweden. And I got to say, I think there's some interest for me, but I want to see them get a quarter of a goal at home. So if I can really get a good price to fade Olympiacos. Thank you for coming in. By the way, anyone watching live, if you want to throw a comment in here, I do have the comments available. If you're watching live on YouTube, because that's where we're streaming these things live, but don't worry, there will be a post coming later with everything you could find it on. And of course, we'll be on all your normal streaming platforms, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and on YouTube. And if you leave 5-star reviews or comment or like, that's huge for the search rankings. Moving next to Porto hosting Hoffenheim, a generally big battle here, but the lines makers certainly don't consider that. At least the betting market doesn't. Porto, another Liga Portugal side that's been getting a ton of respect. Mostly Benfica and Sporting Lisboa in Champions League getting a ton of love and getting bet seemingly every match. Porto in the Europa League is certainly a lower level than they're used to, and that's reflected in this number. Porto currently a 1 goal favorite to Hoffenheim at home with all the juice right now. So we probably will see 1 1/4 before we'll see 3/4 of a goal before kickoff. Over under here is 3. It's juiced really heavily to over. Porto aren't a great offensive side in my humble opinion, and at least that's been on a Champions League level where they're usually the more inferior of the two squads, at least in squad value and maybe in reputation. Certainly different here. TSG Hoffenheim have been awful on the road and have really been struggling with defense. I think Pellegrino Matarazzo, the American at the helm of the German, I was going to say Giants, but not at all. A middling Bundesliga side that found their way into Europa League and have been performing okay and maybe stabilizing some poor Bundesliga results over the last year or so, including last season. I think Hoffenheim is a big underdog, look very interesting to me because they can score goals, but Porto are great, and I think Porto can slice through a Hoffenheim defense. I'm not really an over player, but Joe Dollar is always on me about trying to get me into more overs. So I think if there's one on this card, it is pretty expensive seeing a 3 here, but it's a nice push on 3 if you like over in that matchup. I'll move next to looks like Anderlecht hosting Ludogorets, who we already mentioned in this podcast. Anderlecht, a 3/4 goal favorite at home, Belgian side again. Over under is 2.5 on this one, juiced pretty heavily to over. Ludogorets to me have been a dead under team. They don't have much offense to speak of and have done a fairly good job of defending, I think, so far in this competition. Somehow won at Real Sociedad in San Sebastian, I think right before the international break. And so we'll see if they can keep that story going. But my biggest interest in this one is Ludogorets not scoring. Anderlecht potentially coming back down to earth after a big La Liga upset. And I'll play under 2.5 in this one as my biggest interest. Of course, there's a lot of drama and not great scenarios when a team goes down big. And Ludogorets certainly could if they're not able to score in this matchup. But I just don't know that I trust. Anderlecht had some great goals on the road at Real Sociedad. I'm not sure I see those coming even at home in a much easier environment against a weaker team. I think it's going to be a lot harder and a potential return to earth for Anderlecht. Move next to Tottenham hosting AZ Alkmaar. Currently Tottenham a 1 1/4, so 1.25 favorite, a little bit more juice. Over under is 3 1/4 on this one, just a little bit more to under. Tottenham, they've been playing their normal Ange ball and it's very aggressive, high line, and certainly works for their athletes, especially in this competition. It probably works the best because they're playing much weaker sides. AZ Alkmaar, I haven't been very impressed with their defense so far. So this is another one, Joe Dollar, back-to-back matches, I think. Oh, no, 2 out of the last 3. Excuse me, Joe. But thank you for following your forever support on Patreon as well. And if any of you want to jump in there, patreon.com/real_G1, best spot to get all my plays, leads, write-ups across all sports. With that said, I'm just an under guy, and Tottenham, I can't play unders with them ever. Unless I really like the opponent to potentially have a counter-attacking side and try to catch them with a high line, which I want everyone. So that's more of an underdog than an underplay. Forever with Tottenham, still Ange is winning titles or moving on or something like that. So I don't know that AZ Alkmaar, who are a decent Dutch side, but nowhere near Tottenham's level. And now that Heung-min Son is back, and there seems like a lot going well for Tottenham, I think they're just a team I want to back as an underdog, though it's certainly scary when you're giving better teams the chance to go at that high line. Moving next to Twente hosting Lazio in which seems to be a pretty competitive match according to the lines in this one. We got Lazio a pick'em with almost all the juice right now on the road though at Twente, another Eredivisie Dutch club. Over under is 2.5 in this one. And that's to me is a little bit interesting because Lazio have been doing a great job scoring goals this year. I'm not sure that's going to continue forever and didn't look great as they only registered 0.1 XG, 0.1 according to Football Reference last weekend on the road at Juventus, but did have a red card, I think, if I remember correctly. And ultimately against the Juve defense, that's a really big ask to do or create anything. With that said, I think they'll respond here on the road at Twente, though the Dutch crowds are great. I'm interested to see where this number moves. I initially had a lean to Lazio, but I think I'm into the Twente side, especially if they move to a 1/4 goal underdog. We don't have that yet. I feel like they had a great road draw and under on the road at Manchester United earlier season. I think at this point, I guess I'm interested in the home underdog if they get to a 1/4, but lean to under 2.5. So maybe Lazio doesn't get off the schneid. Two matches left to go before we select an ultimate best bet from this later window of the Europa League from October 24th, and then combine that with the earlier selection and come out with ultimate best bet 6-2 last eight. Rangers are hosting FCSB, so famous that they don't ever write out FCSB. Rangers are 1.25 goal favorite. The Rangers Glasgow side, that is, not the Texas Rangers, where I'm recording just a few miles from their ballpark today or tonight. Over unders 2.75 in this one, juiced pretty heavily to over. I don't know that I got much because I don't even know what FCSB stands for. Might as well look it up on this show, I guess, so everyone knows. I think they're from Romania, I want to say. Football Club FCSB, FC Steaua Bucuresti. Bucharest is in Romania. I almost went there until COVID canceled the trip way back when. But they are not as important as Cluj, I don't think. Well, I guess that probably would anger some. If you're a big FCSB fan and you're mad at me for saying that, I think Cluj is the more historic, but I probably am getting myself more in trouble. FCSB is sitting fifth right now in Liga One, in the top flight of the Romanian league football system. I don't know much about them, so I don't think they're going to make the card. So I'll move to the last matchup as I'm wearing my Olympique Lyonnais practice jersey from like 2019 or something like that when I was out there in France watching, standing next to some place where the guillotine was at work. And then, oh my God, there's a Lyon team store. And actually, the first part of the soccer memorabilia that got me hooked on this beautiful game, as they call it, and now podcasting multiple times a week about it, 4 times, 3 times, something like that. Anyway, Lyon hosts Besiktas, Turkish club. Lyon, a 1 goal favorite with a little bit more juice on Besiktas on the road. Over under is 3, and it's juiced more to the under than to the over. Now, Lyon have looked really good this year, but not hard to do that after how poorly they started last season. Were bottom of Ligue 1 for a long time, went through 3 or 4 managers, and finished the year really well. They had a dominant victory this weekend, were pretty good, even coming off Europa League, heading into the international break. And there's a lot of talent in the Lyon side, in the Lyon youth setup. They've been having talent for there forever. Thank you all of you coming in right now for the last part of the show. I know you're sticking around for the ultimate best bet, so I respect you coming in for that. Great timing. Wow, my phone's gonna die right as I record this. This is gonna be rough, but we're gonna get through it. I think just to get back to Lyon as a 1 goal favorite, it's probably deserved. Besiktas and most Turkish league defenses have been big problems for me, and really just haven't looked great. We got one comment. It's not anything about these matches though. Shivan Jethwa, hello to you as well. If you got something that you want to know about Besiktas, I'll just tell you, I think the Turkish defenses have not looked good in these competitions, which does potentially worry me about a Fenerbahce lean that I mentioned earlier in this podcast. But stay tuned. We might talk a little bit more about that in a little bit. I think Lyon I'm interested in betting against them as a full goal favorite, but they probably win this match. They've been playing well, and I think I need a better, more talented club to go against them. So until that happens, I think I'll let that one go, and it's time to get into the ultimate best bet portion of the show. So I'm going to somehow try to make it the 6% that I have on this cell phone in front of me before I put this on the ultimate best bet portion. Always goes on Instagram and on YouTube at the real_G Warner and the shorts and reels areas. So you can get 28 minutes on tonight's podcast, all in 1 minute, with some beauties that's not my face, that can be goal scoring or defending or something like that from the football point of view. Of course, I'm putting a bunch more of the other podcasts highlights on at the real_G Warner Instagram and on YouTube, including our best bets from the NFL podcast recorded on Tuesday, October 22nd, with some ideas on where we're going this weekend. If you want the full podcast, go to wherever you get your podcast, Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, look Betting the Pitch, or at the real_G Warner, and you will find it. Not sure I have any much more to plug, but I did mention that I'm putting in a sleeper fantasy DFS link if you want to get involved in that side of thing, or if you want some free money for signing up. Follow the links in the podcast description, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and on YouTube. And of course, if you're not a BetOnline or SportsBetting.ag, go make a deposit and they will match your deposit, similar to Underdog. I think Underdog will go, or excuse me, to Sleeper. Sleeper will go up to $100. I honestly, I think that SportsBetting.ag will match 1,000 for 1,000. I think BetOnline was 50% last time I looked. So, and if you get in there, please let me know. I'll be very, very thankful for you, as I think they'll give me a nice little mention or some money as well. So it's time for the ultimate best bet. Let's get into it. So make sure my phone still survives this portion of the show. It's not looking good at the moment. Let's see. Let's see. Can the phone not spasm for a second? Okay, I think we're doing better. So let's get into it. Hey, this is the real underscore G Warner on Instagram, Patreon, Twitter, and on YouTube. It's not. I'm gonna have to start that one over. This phone is gonna die. Hey, this is the real underscore G Warner on Instagram, Patreon, Twitter, and on YouTube. This is the ultimate best bet from the Europa League Match Day 3 episode recorded on Wednesday, October 23rd. If you want the full version, go to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or YouTube at the real underscore G Warner, betting the pitch on Apple Podcasts and on Spotify. And you get full 30 minutes going through each match on the Europa League calendar. But it's ultimate best bet. We're 6-2 this year, and we're trying to keep that run going. I pick my favorite bet from the two options, the early and the late slate on this Europa League podcast. And then you can grade me on whichever one wins, hopefully. We'll start in the early window. My favorite bet is Maccabi Tel Aviv under 2.5 in a neutral site, weird kind of home, away from home match with Real Sociedad. And in the late slate, I like Fenerbahce under 2.75 at home against Manchester United. For my ultimate best bet, I'll stay in that late game. I'll go Fenerbahce under 2.75. I think it's a big question mark on the Manchester United offense, and we don't see many goals in that one. And that'll do it for this episode. Thank you all for tuning in. I will see you on the Friday episode of covering the top 5 European soccer leagues: England, Spain, Italy, Germany, and France. And we'll find some more winners. It's been a really good run lately and try to keep that going as long as possible. Thank you. I guess last comment, Shivan Jethwa, Lyon is looking good. They have looked great this season. I guess that's probably why subconsciously I brought out this practice kit, but I'm also limited on Europa League qualifiers, unfortunately. But thank you for coming in, Siobhan. I hope to see you on the next episode. And please, if you have any comments you want me to go over, please throw in 5-star reviews in Apple Podcasts or on Spotify, and I will read them as soon as I see them. Or if you want to subscribe on YouTube and send me a message there or on Twitter or something like that, just give me some things to cover, and it'll get done on any of the podcasts you hear on the Betting Pitch Podcast Network. Signing off, and I'll see you all over the Twitter webs, and hope everyone is doing great and we win some more money tomorrow.